Hello! Sorry I've been gone for so long. Oh my god, where did you all come from? I leave for a few months and you suddenly all appear? I'm Black Jackal Art, and welcome to my channel. It has been requested that I make a video talking about what supplies I use for both my digital and traditional art. This was specifically requested by art_blocks, and I am so sorry that it took me so long to get this video out. My life has been a bit of a mess. But we're here now, so let's get started. Also, as a disclaimer, this video is not sponsored, but if any of the mentioned companies would like to collaborate with me, I am not opposed. Alright, so first of all, I'll talk about all the different digital tools I use, and if I can particularly point them out in the speed paints I'm doing in the background, I will. So I have an iPad Pro. I think that's just what it's called. I also use a second generation Apple Pencil to go along with it. For a long time, I just used the default nib that the pencil comes with, but I used it for so long that the nib had worn down to metal and it was going to scratch my iPad. I bought these replacement nibs from Amazon, and that's what I've been using ever since then. It's essentially the same, they just have some different styles that come with it. I also very recently added a paper screen protector to my iPad. I think it's this one from Paperlike. I can't really tell if I like it or not, and also I accidentally scratched it from my nib wearing down, so I may take it off. It just adds texture to my screen. I'm kind of neutral about it, although it does make filming stuff easier on my iPad because it doesn't have that annoying camera glare anytime I try and film stuff in the daytime. In terms of programs, I use Procreate. Super original, I know. In the past, like way before I had my Etsy store, I used Paint Tool SAI, or SAI, and I had a Wacom pad. I actually have a fancy Wacom tablet, but it's intimidating to use and I don't have a big enough desk for it right now. Maybe sometime in the future I'll use it again if I'm able to have a really fancy desk setup where I can actually have space for it, but my iPad and Procreate are good enough for me right now. I also want to explore using Clip Studio Paint in the future. We'll see what happens. It's kind of intimidating to me, but almost everybody I've heard of that has moved from Procreate to Clip Studio Paint has loved it, so maybe I'll work myself up to it. In terms of brushes, I really don't use that many. I've tried to branch out with brushes in the past, but it's scary and it kind of annoys me to see how much my style changes based on what brush I'm using. I'm at a point where I like the way my style looks for the most part, and that is very dependent on the brushes I use, so I have a hard time exploring, but I am trying to do this more often lately. I'm trying to adjust my digital style so that it matches my traditional style more. My digital style always looks too smooth to me in comparison to my traditional style, so I'm trying to keep some of that sketchiness in my final works digitally. Anyway, the sketch brushes that I use are usually the Procreate default airbrush or this custom sketch brush that I have. The sketch brush is the one that I used to sketch out both of these speed paints in the video. I sometimes use both brushes for the sketch process. The airbrush is for a really loose idea of what I want the piece to look like, and then I will go in with the sketch brush to refine any features that I need to before lining. As far as the settings of the custom sketch brush go, I actually downloaded it from an artist Patreon, so I don't think I can share the settings of the brush. The artist is CC Crystal Clear. They're on Instagram. And sadly, they don't actually even make content on Patreon anymore, so there is no way of you guys finding this brush. I'm sorry. I honestly suck at editing Procreate brushes, but if you know how to make a similar one, please be my guest. With line art, I am very wishy-washy with brushes. I will have like 2-month cycles where I'll be really content with my line art for like a month, and then I'll try and change it with different brushes for a month, and then I just end up going back to what I've always been using before. It's sort of what I was saying about my style changing when I change brushes. Most often I use that same custom sketch brush for line art. I like the brush for line art because it's really pressure sensitive, like I said, which makes it great for differing line weight. I also think I like square brushes the most for line art simply because I think line art that is more angular looks better, but that's solely a personal preference. Recently, I have wanted to add more texture into my line art, so I've explored using the 6B pencil brush. The base is a little too light for me, like the base brush without editing. Like, I don't enjoy how much you have to go over the lines in order for them to be as opaque as I like, so I used an edited version of the 6B pencil. I kept all the settings the exact same, except I changed the grain scale to 9% instead of like 30% where it's at normally. All this did was shrink the grain, which makes the pencil more opaque like I prefer. I used this pencil to line the first speed paint that I did in this video, and I'm really happy with how it subtly adds texture to the piece. Plus it allowed for a lot of flexibility with line weight. Sometimes if I want really simple line art, I'll also use the technical pen like I did in this piece of some of my D&D characters. My My rendering process is a bit crazy. I feel like I change it literally every month. Okay, that's a lie. I just don't know how to render and I've been avoiding learning it for years. Something I've never changed though is starting with the syrup brush to block out base colors. The syrup brush is nice because it's big, but it also has absolutely no pressure sensitivity, so when I'm trying to do color fills, I never have to worry about pressing down hard enough for a border. For shading and detail, most of the time I will use that same custom sketch brush. I'm only now realizing how much I use this brush, so I'm sorry that I can't give the exact details of it, but yeah, it is in almost all of my shaded pieces. I use this brush because of its hypersensitive pressure settings. It also blends really well, which is nice. I have also recently started using the medium hard blend airbrush to soften hard shading lines in a piece. It's nice because it really blends things together. I have no concrete way of explaining how my rendering process works because, like I said, I don't know how to render, so I do it differently every time. My horrible and unhelpful advice is keep messing with it until it looks good. Although there are two things I do definitively every time, and that's recoloring my line art and using Gaussian blur. I recolor my line art because I originally do line art in black for visual clarity, and that can look quite stark with a lot of pieces, with it usually flattening the work. I take the base color of whatever part of the line art is surrounding it and make a darker and more saturated version of it, then recolor the line art with that. I also use Gaussian blur on the line art just because I like the way it looks, and I believe it makes a piece look more finished. I don't know why. I do that by doubling the line art layer, then selecting the top one and turning on Gaussian blur about 3 to 4%. And that's my digital process. In terms of my traditional art supplies, I have a lot, as you can tell. First of all, the sketchbook I use is a square Leuchtturm 1917, I think is how you pronounce it. The paperweight on these sketchbooks is really, really nice, and besides alcohol markers, nothing bleeds through. All their sketchbooks come with this nice little pocket in the back as well, which I enjoy since I can put scrap paper or whatever I want in there. I love the size of this one. I bought one of their smaller sketchbooks for my next sketchbook, so we'll see if that drives me crazy. Most of the time when drawing in my sketchbook, I'm a wimp and don't like using color. I don't use anything fancy for pencil sketches, just a mechanical pencil I've had forever with 0.5 lead. If I am going to color anything, I will usually use colored lead with this Kurotoga Engine, I think is what it's called, mechanical pencil. I bought a random lead pack with all these different colors from Amazon. I don't love the lead, but when I use it, other things get layered on top of it anyways, so it doesn't really matter. The thing that I use most after my pencil with traditional art is Posca pens. As you can see, I have a ton of those as well. I actually counted, I have 76. I have a problem. I really like Posca pens because they are essentially tools for lazy painting. I have painted a lot in the past, especially when I was in AP art during high school. But painting is so much work and setup most of the time, I'm just too lazy for that now. I have painted exactly one thing in my sketchbook because I needed to use colors my Posca pens didn't have, and it was fun, but again, it was a lot of work. Posca pens are also nice for making pencil sketch pages look not so plain. Recently, I also got these Shuttle Art acrylic paint markers. I don't know how I feel about them yet. When swatching them, some of them were very see-through or streaky and will leave these lines in the area when you fill in large spaces. I used them to color these Pokemon Art Challenge pages I did, and you can see them from far away, it looks fine, but as you get up close you can see the streakiness. I got these markers because I love acrylic paint markers, and Posca pen colors can feel a bit limiting sometimes because there just aren't that many. So they are good to make up for that, but I don't know if I would 100% recommend them. For traditional work, I have also started to love using these colored liners. They are called Marabu Graphics Fine Liners. They're essentially normal pen ink liners, but they come in all these colors and they are wonderful. They give me the chance to do the colored liner I do in my digital art, but traditionally. In terms of normal black liners, I use Ohuhu fine line drawing pens. I use these a lot when drawing my Inktober pieces, and I really love these pens. I've had so many complaints about many different pen liners I've tried in the past, and these solve all of those complaints. I used to use Faber-Castell pens, but if you erase the pencil under the pen after lining with those, the pen ink would rub off a bit and the pen lines would get lighter. These pens don't do that at all. Also, if you watch Static Wool's video about these pens, they also don't smear if used around alcohol markers, which is super nice because most pens smear with that. They come in a range of sizes as well. I have absolutely zero complaints about them. Speaking of alcohol markers, I also use Ohuhu alcohol markers. The set I have is called Honolulu. It's their 120 set of brush and chisel tip markers. These things are great, even if I am a bit of a baby about using them sometimes. They come with a swatch sheet, which is super helpful, and all of their sets also come with this plastic sheet thing for bleeding through. It's a lifesaver, and it's so nice that it's included in all of their sets, no matter how small. These are beautiful markers, and in my opinion, as someone who has used both, they are just as nice as Copics and significantly cheaper. I would definitely recommend them. I will also occasionally use colored pencils in my sketchbook, but I suck at using colored pencils. Most of the time I will use them in tandem with my alcohol markers, like I did with this piece of Jezebel, my D&D character. They're nice because they can be layered on top of alcohol markers, but I find using just colored pencils by themselves has mixed results for me. I use Prismacolor pencils that I have accumulated over the years. These pencils are a combination of probably 10 different Prismacolor sets that have all become one now. Prismacolors have always been my favorite because they have a pretty low wax to pigment ratios compared to other colored pencils. You can tell the difference if you try and blend them with Crayola colored pencils, for example. Crayola blends really poorly because the wax content of the pencils is really high in comparison to the pigment, which is why Prismacolor pencils blend much easier. For other random stuff I use in my sketchbook, I use another accumulated collection of washi tape. I have no idea where I've gotten all of these from, but I use them to add texture to my pages that are too plain. I also use this spray Mod Podge to seal my books, and it's been nice because I don't have to worry about my work smudging as I continue going through my sketchbook. I will also sometimes draw on printer paper or sticky notes when I'm art blocked and then stick them into my sketchbook. Now I figured since I'm already doing this video, I would include a desk tour on top of it since it's pretty easy and it includes supplies that I use all the time. The desk itself is nothing fancy, it's just a corner desk that I got from IKEA, the chair as well, and this art cart that I have next to it is also from IKEA. Starting off on the top shelf, we have everything here that I use most often out of all of my art supplies. So that includes my Ohuhu markers, my Posca pens, my shuttle art markers, and then some fine liners and colored fine liners. We also have some mechanical pencils and erasers, a glue stick, ruler, scissors, just things that I use pretty often. On the second shelf, I keep my paintbrushes, my colored pencils, some more fine liners, some extra Ohuhu markers. Back there are some supplies that I use for packing my Etsy orders. I have masking tape, I seal sketches with that sometimes. I have my washi tape. This is stuff I use often, but just not as often as the stuff on the top row. And down here is just extra storage. I have more packing stuff for Etsy orders. I have my Mod Podge that I use to spray my sketchbook with, some gesso, some sketchbooks for future. This is just random stuff. This is the little thing I use to laminate my Etsy stickers. So you just put the laminate and the sticker paper stuck to each other and then you roll it through this and it presses them together. Here we have the absolute mess of chargers and cords that is underneath my desk. Then we have a bunch of old sketchbooks and a cutting thing. I don't know what that's called. This box is full of art supplies that I use pretty rarely, but I didn't want to get rid of them. And that box is full of all the stuff I use to make my stickers. And as you can see, there's some packaging for my big prints up for Etsy if people get them. Then we're back on the desk itself. This is my printer. I use it for anything and everything I ever have to print that's art related. So I use it to print my stickers, I use it to print packing slips, I use it to print my thank you cards. The only thing I don't use this printer for is for my art prints. I actually get those done at an art shop because it's cheaper and it's actually typically better quality than my printer. This is my iPad, I just keep it on top of my printer, and then these are my glasses. This is a little Hatsune Miku statue that gets hidden behind the stack of boxes. And that's a little figurine of Russell from Gorillaz. This little crate contains all of the stickers that I sell in my Etsy store. You can see all of them are labeled very clearly. It just makes it easier for when I'm packing orders so that I don't have to dig through things that aren't labeled. And then under that box is the box where I keep all my buttons and then my keychains, and my temporary tattoos are in here as well. Next to that, we have my boxes where I keep my freebie stickers. So these are all my Hello Kitty stickers and then freebie stickers that I printed out myself. I include these with most orders. Next to that, this weird looking thing is my button making machine. And behind that we have my Silhouette Cameo machine. That's what I use to cut all of the stickers that I make. Next to that, I have all my thank you cards or other backing cards I include in orders for temporary tattoos, buttons, keychains, etc. This is a little desk vacuum. I've never actually used it because I'm too lazy to put batteries in it, so it's just a nice decoration of Hello Kitty for now. Decoration? That's not a word. Behind that is where I keep all of my mini prints from my Etsy store. This thing is just a little stand for my laptop so I can keep my keyboard underneath it to save desk space. Next to that is the microphone I use for filming videos most of the time. These are just random sticky notes that I'll stick in my sketchbook. These are all the stickers I'll include for packaging my Etsy orders. And then underneath that is my label printer, which I use to print like the addresses and info to ship my Etsy orders. These are Ziplocs that I put my Etsy stickers in. Those are my AirPods. And this weird thing is the camera mount that I use for filming like freehand videos. So if I'm sketching in real time and I want to record that, I'll use this camera mount so that I am not holding it while drawing at the same time. Then underneath my sketchbook we have this cutting mat. I originally bought this to be like a interesting background to take pictures of sketches on, but now I actually really like it because I use it to like glue stuff so that the residue doesn't get on my desk. And then my sketchbook is the last thing. So that's my whole desk tour. As far as the pictures and posters behind my desk, these are either from me or from artists I bought at conventions or ordered stuff from. If you guys are actually interested, I can find the names of all the artists that are on the wall, but that's only if you guys would care, so I guess let me know in the comments. But other than that, that's everything that's included in my digital and traditional work, and a little mini desk tour for you all. Thank you art_blocks for requesting this video. It was really fun to make. I do actually have footage for an Inktober video if people would be interested in seeing that 4 months late. I'm also desperately trying to finish this current sketchbook, so there will be a sketchbook tour at some point in the near future, hopefully. In the meantime, please let me know what videos you would like me to make next. Here's where you can find me on other socials, and thank you so much for watching.